Hi everyone, my name is Vishwa and welcome to Facts No Printer. This season we will be exploring some of the ravines and green spaces in Toronto. Today we have a guest and we'll be talking about some of her favorite green spaces in the city. Hey, would you like to introduce yourself for the audience?
Hi Vishwa. Hi everybody else. My name is Swarna. I'm in fourth year advertising and I moved to Toronto 3 years ago.
Awesome. So just to start off the questions, can you tell us about one of your favorite green spaces in the city and what makes it so special to you?
So I feel like one of my favorite green places in the city is probably Queen's Park. I feel like Queen's Park, especially during fall time, like if you walk down from behind the ROM, and like if you walk down from the U of T campus and towards College Street, I believe, it's really scenic. I was walking there like last week. You could see like really good fall colors over there. It was completely orange, red, a bit of green, yellow. It was a really nice blend of colors.
Okay, what's your favorite time of day to see these green spaces though?
I feel like my favorite time of the day to see the green spaces is either early in the morning after like 8 or like 7, 8, 9, 10 up until 11 until the sun is really overhead. Otherwise, I would say anything from 3 to dark is really good because then you can sort of be outside in the sun and soak up the nature and don't have to worry about it being too warm or too like, because I personally am sensitive to sun, so that's my favorite time.
No, it's valid. Have you ever been to Queen's Park at sunset or like the twilight area?
Oh, no, I have not been to Queen's Park really late at night.
Okay,
or really
not the
early.
best idea.
Yeah, because I think you can get robbed.
Yeah,
or something.
maybe let's not do that.
Yeah,
but it's very interesting because of the what is it? The headlamps. It gives like sort of a rom-com vibe.
Yeah, even the whole area in general gives a really
because of the U of T buildings. And
yeah, it's really, I think it's Gothic or Victorian architecture, so it really provides a really Hogwarts-y vibe.
Yeah, I kind of wish we had more of those spaces here that give that, because of, especially with like the new condominium developments and everything.
Especially with gentrification, those spaces are really going
disappearing.
away.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, our next question is, do you have any hidden gems in the city's parks or green spaces that you think that people often overlook?
I feel like the Grange Park doesn't get enough credit.
Really?
Yeah, so like it's a weird take, but I feel like the Grange Park has a lot more potential than we allow it for, especially because it's known to be affiliated with OCAD and it's a park particular to OCAD, and like most of the OCAD people can be seen over there. But I feel like even then I feel like it's so underutilized because it has a lot more potential. I feel like if it was a bit more nicer with a lot more greener spaces, I feel like more people from OCAD would like to go there.
What is something you'd like to see in Grange Park then?
Maybe more greenery, more. I feel like the Grange Park is really sparse as compared to Queen's Park, like with the foliage. I feel that maybe more foliage would be helpful for the Grange Park.
So like shrubs and like plants, wildflowers.
Yeah. Maybe a maze.
Ooh, imagine that during the fall time.
Yeah.
Because have you been to Center Island during the fall?
Yeah, no, I think I've been to Center Island only once in summer.
Okay, so are you familiar with the maze that's there?
Yeah.
That would be so cool.
Yeah, imagine.
Even if it's as a seasonal thing. I feel like Grange Park is, especially the grass, it's sort of lacking in grass in a way.
I feel like it's really patchy.
Yeah, maybe some fertilizer or...
And there are like 5 trees.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No
but
shade
it's
at all.
So centrally located, and it's a nice neighborhood as well. Like especially with it's sort of, I guess, like residential area, especially like behind on Soho Street, in those areas, there's a lot of nice houses and
And the
stuff.
trees and
Yeah.
everything during fall, it really gives that whole small town vibe in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people don't really realize that Grange Park is actually one of the biggest parks in core downtown.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is kind of sad.
it is very sad. Like all we have really is parklets.
Yeah.
I mean, I come from the suburbs, so I'm very used to like entire ravines. So downtown, just having like these little tiny spaces, it's sad. And the city really should do more to revitalize it.
Yeah.
Okay, next question is, what is it about spending time in nature that resonates with you personally?
I think for me it just goes back to childhood because I grew up in sort of suburban countryside area of my city in India, and every Sunday morning my dad and I would go on bike rides and just explore the nature around our house. And where my house is used to be in sort of a remote location of the city, so like we were completely isolated from other places, and it used to be really quiet. The only things that you could like hear were like truck noises, like truck horn noises on the highway far away, and other than that there was like no sound at all for like, and this it was that way for years. So for me it just narrows down to that. And I saw a lot of wildlife as a child. Like we would frequently have snakes coming in our house, weird bugs, cockroaches that were like this big.
The flying ones?
Yeah, and like this big, and like it was like, and spiders and yeah, all weird sorts of stuff. I think my dad also spotted a jackal at one point, and yeah, rabbits, wild pigs. So yeah, but now it's completely because of gentrification. Now it's completely like residential, and it's not even suburban anymore. It's just like city area where I live now. So that whole part of the nature is gone, and the whole ecosystem has been disturbed. So you don't really see these things anymore.
How big were the snakes?
I have seen snakes that have been this big long, like 2 inches,
that?
like 3 inches. But then I've also seen snakes that have been like 8 feet long. Like in my own house, we have had
Inside.
cobras.
Inside.
Yeah, we have had cobras inside.
Really
our
does not
house.
feed to the cobra stereotype.
Yeah, it really, yeah, because like I said, I'm from India, so yeah. India is a wild country.
Anything can happen. Yeah, it's like some places in India you can,
Yeah.
like especially in the state we live in, like crocodiles during flood
Yeah,
season.
you know, my dad, his office is in countryside. So my dad one day he sent me a video of a monitor lizard just sitting in the couch of his office, like, and it was like the length of this couch, and it was just like my dad opened the door, and the monitor lizard was just sitting there and looking at my dad with his tongue out, doing the whole tongue thing that it does, and just like, it was so weird.
I'm grateful that we don't have such wildlife here. But moving back to Canada, because we're speaking of wildlife, have you ever seen a coyote?
I feel like a coyote is the Canadian version of what we would consider a jackal in
Yes,
India.
yes,
I think,
probably.
yeah. I think it's just a wild dog, which is small but also kind of dangerous. So yeah. So I have never seen a coyote because I've never left downtown. I don't leave downtown a lot. Like maybe like once or twice a year I'll go to like Newmarket or someplace. But I've never seen a coyote here. I've never even seen a snake here. The scariest thing I ever saw was one of those caterpillars that looks like a pipe cleaner.
Oh, those are so cute, actually.
No, I feel like, okay, I have something against insects. I feel like every time I see an insect, I want it to die.
That's valid.
Yeah.
Question mark. But will it ruin your day if I tell you that there are coyotes in downtown? They are very rare, though.
I don't feel like it would ruin my day. Like,
Okay.
Yeah, when am I ever going to meet a coyote?
That's true.
Like the closest I got to seeing any sort of nature in downtown was one time when I was napping in a class. I dreamt that there was a bear on Richmond Street where I live.
Good thing there was not a bear. So, is there any green space in Toronto that you feel particularly connected to, maybe because of a memory or an experience?
I feel like maybe Don Valley might be the one because, especially if you have seen the whole region of Rosedale, Summerhill, Davisville, which is like connected to Don Valley. Like if you travel from there to behind, and it it does have a special connection to me because when I moved to Toronto, there wasn't like I think it was my first exposure to wildlife, or just like my first exposure to nature in general. Because, like I mentioned, like there aren't many green spaces in downtown. I think the biggest ones are probably Trinity Bellwoods Park, the Grange Park, Moss Park. So I feel like even with those parks, it's so not nature-esque that Don Valley felt like the first true nature experience for me as an immigrant, because I think I visited Don Valley within the first 3 weeks I was here.
Wow, how'd you find that place?
Oh, I went there with like a OCAD.
Oh, the
tour.
welcome
Yeah,
squad.
yeah, like a welcome
Did
squad.
you go to
tour.
Evergreen Brickworks? Was it that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we went to Castle Frank Station, and then we hiked our way to Don Valley, and then Evergreen Brickworks, and yeah, back to Davisville.
That's interesting. And you also have a lot of like nature experience in India, because I remember every time you go back home, you always go on like this trip to the mountains and like nature and everything. But what is like the main key difference that you find between the nature green spaces here versus back home, besides the wildlife?
I feel like if we're comparing green spaces in the city, I think my city does have more green spaces to offer, because every road has a like even on the center of the like even on the sidewalks there are trees planted everywhere. There is a space called Sundarban inside my city, which is like a wildlife conservatory. So it's literally in the middle of the city, and it's really green, and like it's like every time you go there, like the temperature is at least like 5 degrees lower. It's colder over there because of the greenery. I feel like in terms of like hardcore nature though, I think Canada might be a win, because Canada is so vast and unexplored in comparison to India. India is also really big and vast and unexplored, but the sheer population density of India makes it so that it is more populated, which means there are sort of lesser complete greener spaces.
I think it's really interesting because when I went to India and then you took me around the city, I saw peacocks everywhere, especially in the urban
peacocks,
spaces.
monkeys.
Yeah, and that was something that
Yeah.
I was kind of prepared for, but also not really, just because of how connected the nature versus the residential areas were. It's like saying over here there's deers in downtown Toronto. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like I feel like birds in downtown are such a rare sight, whereas you go to any major Indian cities, there are always birds and sparrows and like all kinds of birds, not just pigeons over there. There are more exotic birds like peacocks. There are other animals such as monkeys. There are dogs, but undomesticated dogs are like a weird, particularly Indian problem. But there are also cows, because people have pets, like pet cows over there.
So cute.
In the middle of the city, not just like in the farms. Like they'll have a cow in their backyard.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, you will not see that here in Toronto.
Yeah.
But again, people don't have exactly have farms here.
I feel like once you move north, like near Newmarket and those areas, that's when the farm wildlife sort of starts hitting. But yeah, in India you don't have to be away from the city to experience a bit of wildlife. There are also weird reports where there are leopards that snatch away kids from the middle of the city, like in southern parts of India.
Maybe I'm grateful to be living here.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good idea, especially if you don't like reptiles, because we also have like a huge lizard problem.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, like we were in a mall and a lizard fell on our table while we were in the food court
Oh no. Wait, when was this?
when you were there.
Wait, when I was there, like.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw it. It was so
Oh
cute.
yeah. Yeah, and I said, Vishwa, that's disgusting. It's a lizard near our food.
It was
A
cute.
lizard that we don't even know.
Reptiles don't get rabies.
You wouldn't let a pet jackal near your food, like, would you? Like, you wouldn't?
Okay, what was a little tiny baby lizard gonna do?
It's disgusting.
It wasn't gonna touch it. It just let it be, you know?
It deserves to die.
Okay. Well, for a final question, if somebody is new to Toronto and wants to explore its green spaces, where would you recommend they start?
I think maybe if you are new to Toronto, the best place would be to start with the islands, because I feel like the islands also have a lot of value to the indigenous culture over here, and they are really beautiful, and you can see the other side of the islands and where the ocean, not the ocean, where the lake is, and you can explore how there's a lot of, I think on better days there are some people doing like weird water sports out there. I've seen some of them. I don't know what the name is, but it's sort of like paragliding on water.
Oh, that's so cool. I don't know what
Yeah,
that is either.
I don't know what it's called, but it's like I've seen. It's a mix between paragliding and surfing. That's
it's
how
really
I would
cool.
describe it if you've seen that. But yeah, also there's a lot of really beautiful houses on the island. What I did one day was I just walked the entire length of the island, which is like 7 kilometers or something.
How long
like
did it
that.
take you?
A really long time.
Valid.
Yeah, maybe like 2-3 hours, and by the end, because it was so silent on the island that day, by the end I was just like descending into madness, and then at one point I started crying near Alan's point. I was like, no, this is too quiet for me.
It makes sense because downtown you're
Yeah.
just so used to the
Yeah, you're so
noise.
used to noise in downtown that once that noise has been like replaced with the sound of nature and like no human activity near you at all, it just becomes really deafening in a way.
No, I understand that. Because a couple of years ago I went to New York and I was just in Manhattan for a couple of days, like near Times Square, so never quiet. And then I came back to Toronto in the suburbs where I live, and I'm like, something is off. Like it feels
Yeah,
so
it takes
wrong.
a day or two for your ears to sort of adjust back to not being
Normal.
around noises.
No, of course. Is there a space that you haven't been yet but you want to go, like a green space?
You know, I've heard there are a lot of like dark reserves outside of Toronto, like up north. I feel like I would really want to go to a dark reserve, mostly because I want to see the northern lights, especially because that's the whole solar things happening during 2025. So like I want to go to a dark reserve, but I also don't drive, so it's really tough.
Yeah, and I mean, neither do I.
Yeah.
My parents are begging me to get my license.
Yeah, I think like if Vishwa gets her G
G2.
license, like whatever
Yes.
G she needs, we can finally go up there.
Will
Or
it
maybe we
happen?
can drag her brother.
Who? Yes.
Yeah,
my-
in his stripper Tesla.
Yes. Hopefully I get, because I think it was last month that the Northern Lights were
Yeah.
happening again.
And people could see them from downtown, which
Downtown.
was crazy.
Yeah, and I was downtown that day. I'm like, I don't see them.
One of
What
my
kind
friends who lives on King West saw them.
No way.
Yeah.
My brother saw them from Waterloo. And then he's like, what is this green stuff in the sky?
He's just like, somebody threw up.
He showed me pictures as well, and it was very bright from Waterloo.
Oh wow, yeah.
So I completely agree. I've never been to a dark reserve either.
Yeah, I think the place's name is Torrance Barren.
I have no idea.
I feel like that's the closest dark reserve to Toronto. I think it's like near Simcoe, if I'm not wrong. I'm
Okay,
wrong.
that's not so far.
But yeah, that looks really nice. Like even during daytime.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dark Reserve 2025.
Sure. if you get your G.
If I do.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experiences. I learned a lot about these different green spaces, and you reminded me of dark reserves, which I completely forgot about.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can make that happen.
Yeah. Dark Reserve 2025.
If I get my license,
Yeah.
or if I convince someone to drive us.
Yeah, hopefully your brother can.
And agrees. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And yeah, stay tuned for another episode of Facts No Printer, where we will take you inside one of these green spaces in Toronto. Bye.
Bye.